everyone. This is our second week back on semester. So yeah, in case you just got here and throughout the time of this meeting, you can go to hackingchef.org/sign-in. This is just so that we can get attendance, so you can be registered. You can be marked as an active student member. Once you do that at 50% of our meetings, you're able to vote. That's a new SGA rule that we follow this semester. So just passing that information along to the rest of you. And that's been posted in chat. So once you do that, let's move on to the next one. So how do you stay informed? We have our mailing list and our Discord and our Twitter. So most of our communications will happen on Discord. So if you're not in the Discord server already, you might want to hop in there and join the rest of us. And we talk, we're always there. Mailing list, Twitter, follow on Twitter, mailing list. If you like emails, if you don't delete every single one you get, you can join that just to get a nice weekly review of what we do. So today, we're going to go over the announcements. Then we're going to go over the current events. Peyton will present some of those today. And then onto our main talk will be Backdoors and Breaches with our guest, Ean Meyer. And then we're going to close things out. So first things, we do have operations. So if you're interested in helping volunteer or run this club, you can give yourself the ops role in Discord. That's in the bot commands channel. You can just do .role ops and that'll give it to you. And then you can see our general ops channel where all of the members who want to help contribute are active. And we meet on Zoom every Monday at 7:30. And those links will also be posted in the calendar and in Discord. And they're open to anyone. You don't have to be any skill set or whoever to help us out. We're just brainstorming workshops and main topic ideas. Tomorrow, we will be hosting a virtualization workshop led by, I believe, Ryan. We're going to learn how to do VMs. So there's no experience required. It's a very entry-level workshop. They're going to teach you how to, I think they posted guides already on how to install a VirtualBox. If not, I'm sure they can briefly walk you through that on Saturday. And getting through and installing Linux and doing all that cool stuff. So there is some prereq, but it is posted in the Discord, so you can follow along. And if you have any questions or difficulties with that, you can, of course, ask in the Discord. We're all there to help everyone else. And again, the link is in Discord and on the calendar. So I think Peyton wanted to talk a bit about competitions.
Let's start with Alex. Tracy, you'll have to make Alec Coder a co-host so he can speak.
All right, give me 1 second. He is now co-host. Go ahead, Alex.
TCP SYN.
We can hear you, Alex.
TCP reset.
First things first. Hivestorm. It's a competition run by the same people who run CCDC. It's a great learning opportunity for beginners. Some people who did cybersecurity in high school might know it better as Cyber Patriot. Same thing. The teams are 2 to 4 people. We will be putting something together for teams who want to find people who want to find each other to make a team. It's a great learning opportunity for beginners. It's again was originally meant for high school students, so you can compete. I have a trophy somewhere in my house. I need to find it again. We can do as many teams as we want. So like, you know, feel free to do it. You're not taking the opportunity away from anyone else. Let's see. Yeah, more information will be forthcoming with this. Next slide, please. DOE Cyberforce, that's another fun one. This year, it's completely individual and anyone can do it, can do it. DOE Cyberforce is normally restricted to 6 people per school per team. So it's been traditionally handled by like faculty and run under the school. Not this year. So it's solo. You can do it. You can sign up. If you go to the link, there'll be a link to sign up. Just like, you know, put your name down. There is a limited amount of seats. So like sign up quickly if you want to do it. It's definitely a more expert level competition. But also if you want to just join around and even if you don't know exactly what you're doing, you'll probably learn something else anyway. It's a nationally recognized competition too. So yeah, that's Cyberforce.
Okay, now I'm going to start talking about some of the CTF type events that we got going on. The big one coming up is next weekend is the Seesaw qualifier for 2020. This year Seesaw is a little bit different because of course everything is remote. I will have to double check the rules, but I am fairly sure that if we qualify, we will be able to send more than the normal, I think 5 people, which would be very, very good. So September 11th through 13th, we'll be playing. We'll start directly after next week's meeting. We already have the team registered. We'll be playing underneath NightSec CU. The reason for NightSec CU is that we'll be doing this alongside Clemson so that we have more people. We'll get a nice firm team so that we can go ahead and try and qualify. If you want to try and compete, there's no experience necessary, and you just type .roll nightsec in bot command in order to play. This is a really good CTF, really good experience. I highly recommend it to anybody who wants to join in, even if you only can come for an hour or so. Next slide. National Cyber League, this is another event that's sort of ongoing. It's $35 for individuals, and it's promoted as a competition, but I think it's more of a personalized training. They give you a guide on how to complete challenges, as far as I remember, and access to chat channels of a lot of other people completing the challenges, so you get really good resources for that event. Next slide real quick. This is the schedule for the event. So the gymnasium is time to practice. Then there's a preseason, which is like a round to figure out exactly like your experience level, and then the individual game, which is the ranked bit. Overall, a really good opportunity for you to learn some stuff. And if you want to play as a team, at the bottom there's a team game occurring November 6th to November 8th. These slides will be posted afterwards, as well as other stuff, so you'll be able to get these exact times. Go back to one slide real quick. Just so you see again, https://nationalcyberleague.org. 2 slides forward. Another event coming up is Clemson CTF. CU CTF is coming up on October 3rd from noon to 8. This will be an online CTF that we'll be competing at under NightSec. These guys put on a really good CTF last year, from what I've seen. And they will also be holding a boot camp for people that want to get into CTF, so may not know much about how to do them. I've talked with the organizers, and they have, as far as I know, quote unquote, unlimited seating. Of course, like they can't handle a billion people, but they can handle a lot of people. So we will be doing CU CTF, and then if people are interested in the boot camp, there's more information there. Go to cuctf.io for more information, and I will also put the links to the link to that Discord into our Discord. We'll be competing in our Discord, but they have another one for the competition that might be interesting to join. Next slide.
Right.
The virtual cyber lab. I go ahead and I'm just going to talk about this just because I was doing a lot of stuff there this week. We usually have the cyber lab in person to go and hang out in. This year, of course, this semester, we don't. Virtual Cyber Lab is open 24/7, 365. So feel free to jump in there whenever. I'll be in there every once in a while, literally streaming games after work. So feel free to jump in, talk, hang out, do whatever. It's a really good little socialization area. Next slide. And then back to me for current events. So I'm doing a bunch of back-to-back stuff, so I kind of line this up. So current events add-on. This box is the internet. I don't know if you're aware, but when you pay for your internet service, you're actually paying for one particle of this box. And this box allows you to hit Reddit. And by that, I mean that's a complete lie. Next slide. There's actually a bunch of companies behind the internet, and one of them kind of had an outage the other week. And so I wanted to talk about what happened here, a little bit about how the internet works, and just so that we can go through a little bit of this article to understand what occurred. So, August 30th, 2020, analysis of the CenturyLink Level 3 outage. Next slide. So if you look at the internet, internet's a bunch of it's a network of networks. It's a big mess of different networks. Next slide. The way that these networks communicate is through a thing called BGP, at least partially. BGP, you tell your neighbors what you serve. So like, tell my neighbor, as Google, that I serve 8.8.8.0/24. I serve these two networks as identified by those numbers. You can see above, they have like ASN IDs. So Google is ASN 15169. And they serve, in this example, these two networks, 8.8.8.0/24 and 8.8.4.0/24. Use BGP to communicate those routes to everyone else. Next slide. They communicate it to their peers. One of these peers is CenturyLink Level 3, which is a big backbone of the internet company. You may not have heard of them, but they are very, very important. They manage a lot of the backbone of the internet. They are a very sophisticated and highly qualified team that happens to have outages every once in a while. These outages can include services for the internet, as well as things like 911 service, which has occurred in the past. Next slide. Cloudflare peers with Level 3. So this is the top peers that that Cloudflare uses, and I highlighted Level 3 Parent LLC, which is Level 3 CenturyLink. They peer with all these different peers, so that they have redundancy. So one of them goes down, everything doesn't go down. So like if their upstream provider were to disappear off the earth, they still have all the others to deal with. Next slide. However, CenturyLink had an outage. When CenturyLink had their outage, Cloudflare failed over. This graph from 0 to 100 is all of their traffic. That red, the red that's like the same red as the arrow kind of, is the amount of traffic that was going through CenturyLink's network. When the outage occurred, you can see the line went down, and it turned into this tiny little line as compared to all the other big areas compared to it. This is because, of course, they have redundant measures at Cloudflare in order to make it to where if their ISP goes down, all their traffic doesn't go down. So the question becomes, if CenturyLink had an outage, why is there still red there? There's a good reason for that, and that is next. CenturyLink is also an ISP for residential people. So if I'm at my house and I pay for Spectrum for internet, and Spectrum goes down, I'm screwed. I don't have two ISPs in my house. I don't pay for Spectrum and Comcast. Cloudflare pays for however many that they need in order to have redundancy, but I only pay for Spectrum. So in this case, that little bit of traffic we saw before is all the people who are trying to access them from CenturyLink networks. That did not go too well when CenturyLink has an outage. Next slide. So CenturyLink had an outage. Cloudflare, which hosts many of the internet's websites, had an outage because they couldn't get all of their traffic off of CenturyLink. So why did it take so long to fix? I want to go over a little bit of this. They say that they can only speculate on what occurred because the CenturyLink NOC is one of the more sophisticated. They are a very sophisticated network operator with a world-class NOC. So they did a good job in terms of trying to handle this, but they didn't specifically tell Cloudflare exactly the details of everything that occurred. So Cloudflare tried to speculate. They speculate that it may have been that the flow spec rule and significant load, that the large number of BGP updates, yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to go into the details of that bit about how flow spec and BGP updates work. Generally speaking, they saw a ton of BGP traffic coming out of a CenturyLink, say 2 to 3 times as much as normal. They think that it's the result of CenturyLink trying to put in place a flow spec rule. That didn't go well. And so they assumed that as a result of the flow spec change, an outage occurred. As I said, I'm not worrying about the details of these 2 paragraphs. The big thing here is that word speculate. They don't really know what occurred, but in this article, they wanted to point out that they can speculate. Next. They also think that the flow spec rule was not issued by CenturyLink Level 3. Probably another company that did it, but due to how BGP is handled, they populated through their network. Last sentence, another critical sentence to learn from this. Incidents happen. We appreciate their team keeping us informed with what was going on throughout the incident. #HugOps. Even if there was an incident which led to their customers being upset, they understand incidents occur, and they weren't happy that it occurred early on a Sunday morning. However, it does happen. My mic cut out. It does happen. They appreciate their team for keeping them informed. So overall, CenturyLink had an outage. Cloudflare went down. Cloudflare tried to speculate on what occurred, and then Cloudflare's like, okay, we get it. Outages occur. We're moving on. Everything's up now. But we wanted to talk about like why did this occur so that maybe we can try and figure out how we can handle this better in the future. Next slide. Another big piece of news is kind of the actual operation of a thing that's been planned for a while. So we know that we have HTTPS, which is transferring web traffic with a certificate. If you don't have HTTPS, you see the little not secure thing. Not securely communicated, doesn't have a cert. Next slide. A cert looks like that thing on the left. You are given it by a certificate authority, or you do a handshake in order to try and figure out, in order to try and like request a cert and yada, yada, yada. But it ends up that you as the web server have a cert. On the right, we see the details that Windows shows for the cert. Note the valid from and valid to part. When you have a cert, one of the features of it is that it's only valid for a certain amount of time, the same way that your driver's license expires, a certificate expires. These expiration dates in the past have been set to a max of 5 years. So every 5 years, the person managing the server would have to get a new cert that is valid. Things are now changing. Next slide. So now they're only going to last 398 days at max for certs that are issued after or on September 1st, which is the other day. Who makes this rule? The CA and Browser Forum. So the browsers, essentially. The browsers and the people who hand out these certs came to an agreement. This happened back earlier in the year. And Google Chrome, Firefox, and Apple all agreed that they would start enforcing publicly trusted TLS certificates only if they have a lifetime of 398 days or less. This is a new thing. This means that people who are managing these servers are going to have to watch how long these certificates last and make sure that they get them updated in a timely fashion. Otherwise, if you try and go to google.com and their certs, their cert lasts too long, it lives too long, it will pop up an error saying error cert validity too long, like that. So you don't want your customers seeing that message because that is not your website nor your service. As a result, you'll have to start refreshing your certificates more regularly. Next slide. A little bit of pros and cons of this decision. The pros is that you'll be able to roll out quicker security features, so like TLS version, yada, yada, yada. You'll be able to get that rolled out more because people are going to be rolling out certs more often. It also enforces regular key rotation, which is overall a thumbs up. However, it's going to lead to a higher chance of TLS failures if you are, not doing it the same way every time or things change. Also, you have to do more work because you'll have to go request the cert. Joseph just asked a question, how easy is it to refresh a cert? Depends. If you're just hosting your blog or whatever, you may use Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt lets you just hit an API endpoint. You ask them, hey guys, my website's over there. Can you give it a cert? And they will issue a cert using different validation techniques through either DNS or you posting a thing on your website, yada, yada, yada. If it's through DigiCert or the like, there's more complex means for doing it. I've heard of times like sending emails and phone calls and stuff in order to try and get certs through. So overall, generally speaking, if you aren't using one of those big certificate authorities, you're probably fine. Just make sure your certs get updated. However, a lot of sysadmins right now are going to go through a little bit of headache because they need to make sure that they get their certs re-rolled every year now. Next slide. This one is a little bit older, but for some reason it popped up this week. I don't know why everybody's talking about it, but I thought it would be a fun thing to put in here anyway. There was a bug in Slack that allowed you to run code on a person's machine through a code snippet. So you make a code snippet. In your code snippet, you put in the batch script that you want to run. If the person downloads and views this code snippet, it'll run the script. $1,500 bug bounty was split out amongst 2 people, and it was disclosed disclosed technically earlier in the year, but it was publicly disclosed in June. Just a fun thing I thought I'd leave in there. If you want to look at the slides, the videos in there for your viewing pleasure. Next slide.
All right, thank you, Peyton. That was plenty of super secure current events. So now let's move on to the main topic. I'll just give it to Ean Meyer now. So take it away.
Hello, everybody. As has been said, my name's Ean Meyer, and I know this is a new semester. Many of you are new faces, even though I can't necessarily see you. But I love coming out to Hack UCF and try and make my way out there occasionally. For those who have been out before or have seen me out before, last time I was out, we were trying to get interns, and then a little pandemic started, and the economy did all kinds of crazy stuff. So again, I hope at some point to be able to start recruiting again. And this is one of the first places I like to come. So with that said, what we're going to talk about tonight is a game. We're going to talk about a game called Backdoors and Breaches. And this is a game that was developed by Black Hills Information Security. And they are a security company out of not Colorado, they're out of South Dakota. And if you are not familiar with this game right now, you can go to, as a matter of fact, you want to stop sharing your screen because I think they're just seeing my video. So if you want to stop sharing the Backdoors and Breaches there.
Just confirming with someone else to see if I can do that. Yep.
Okay.
Stop share.
Okay.
Zoom is new. Here we go.
There we go. Perfect. So now when I'm talking, it should go in on them when it's focused on me. So, all right, very good. So hopefully you all can see this now. But Backdoors and Breaches, you can search for Black Hills and Backdoors and Breaches, and you will get all kinds of information on this game. So what is this game? It is a card game, a lot like, not a lot like Magic the Gathering or some of these other things, but essentially it's a thought exercise. It allows the incident master, who's going to be me, I'll be playing the role of the incident master today, to come up with a scenario, something that you have to figure out. And you can read more about, there we go, you can read more about Backdoors and Breaches on this website, but we're going to cover the basic rules and what we do tonight. And there's 5 of you on, and we'll get you to kind of introduce yourselves and say hi here in a second, that are actually going to play the game tonight. And we're going to play it. I'm going to run through an incident, and it's really, really great for those of you who are saying, wow, I've come into school, or maybe I just discovered security and I'm really interested in doing it. It's a great thought exercise to go through and think about, what do you do when there's an incident? What do you do? How would we handle an incident with the tools we have available? So let's actually talk about the rules here for a second. So here are the rules, right? This is the Backdoors and Breaches visual guide. And this is on that page, like I said, if you search for Backdoors and Breaches and Black Hills, you'll find their blog post and has this visual guide. So if you want to look at it from there, you can do that. But I'm going to go through the core rules, right? Basically what happens is I lay out 4 pieces of the incident. And those are the initial compromise. I always look to my left to remember it. I should remember these. The initial compromise, what actually got you into the environment. The pivot and escalate. Once you got in, where did they move laterally in the environment, and how did they escalate privilege? Meaning, how did they get more privileges like administrator or root or something that would allow them to do more in the environment? What did they do to get persistence? Meaning, once they were in the environment, how did they make sure they didn't get kicked out by the blue team, the defenders, the people trying to keep attackers out of the environment? And then finally, what they call C2 and exfil. So for those of you new, C2 stands for command and control. Often when hackers get into an environment, whether it be criminal hackers, and I should always say that because I know this is, some people are new. Hacker is not a bad word. You have criminal hackers, you have hackers that are doing good, that are working in bug bounty programs, but let's say these are criminal hackers. They will go through and set up a C2 to send commands into the environment, send additional software, because they don't want to send their entire payload at once, because that's too easy to detect. You want to get a command and control so you can control those systems remotely. Now, the last thing is the exfiltration, referred to as exfil. It is not a breach until you've got what's called actions on objectives in the real world. It means the criminal did what they were supposed to do. Using a completely non-technical term, and if any of you are fans of Futurama, I know that show's a little older at this point, but I know it's still got a lot of a fan base. There's an episode with a space oil tanker that has 700 holes. And they're like, oh, it's unbreachable. We'll never have an oil leak, or I think it was a dark matter leak. And then they get a scratch in it that goes through 701 holes. And they're like, oh, if we only had another hole. Well, okay, 700 holes should have handled it. The point is on an oil tanker, you have multiple hulls that can be breached before oil leaks into the ocean. And that's the bad thing that you're trying to avoid. If your defenses, those additional hulls, prevent that, you don't have exfiltration, you don't have oil leaking out into the ocean, you don't have data spilling onto the internet. It's the exfiltration or the actions on objective, which could also be ransomware, could be other things, but I'm trying to keep it simpler here. So I've chosen 4 of these, and I've laid them out, and in this kind of shiny bald dome, we have a storyline. And what's going to happen is when we start this game, I am going to tell you a bit about what we know about the incident thus far. And then you will have procedures you can use. Now, you'll see those procedures in just a moment, but you'll get 4 procedures that you have documented, written down. Your team knows how to do them spot on. And then there's a whole bunch of other procedures that you can call on to investigate something, and your team has to choose which of these you're going to do. Now, when they do that, you end up rolling a 1d20. Now, if you do not have a 1d20 available, no problem. I think this crowd probably does, but if you don't, you can go to Google and just type in roll a dice or roll dice, and you will get a dice roller right there. You choose the 1d20 and you click roll, and it will give you a random, number off a 1d20 die. So once you choose a procedure, right, if you roll a 10 or below, it fails. And that procedure goes into a cooldown. So you can't use that procedure again for 4 turns. And what we do is we'll track that. You'll see that in a moment. We rotate the card, and then you can use that procedure again. Each of those procedures have certain tools and can discover certain types of those initial compromises, etc. And I know this sounds like a lot to take in by the second round of the 10 rounds that we'll go through. You'll have it down. You'll have it figured out. But let's say the procedure passes and the procedure is capable of discovering one of the things that I've got as my initial compromise and all that good stuff, that persistence, etc. We will flip over that card. Your goal is within 10 moves, 10 rounds, 10 procedures that you roll. In 10 procedures, you discover the whole thing, the initial compromise, the persistence, the escalation and pivot, the C2 and exfil, etc. If you don't, blue team loses, unfortunately. Cyber insurance is engaged. Mandiant is called. Incident responders come in. If not, hurrah, huzzah, you survive. There are a couple other rules to keep in mind. If you play a procedure that is one of the 4 that I gave you, if you do that, you will get a +3 to your roll because you've got it documented, right? Your team understands how to do it. So you'll get a +3. So you can get an 8, and that will take you to an 11, and you pass. Another rule to keep in mind is that if you use any of the other procedures, which you can use, and you'll see them all in a second, you don't get that plus modifier. So it actually makes more sense to use the procedures that get the plus modifiers early, because as you go through your 10 rounds, they can go through their cooldown and come back and you can use them again. Because if you fail a roll, it doesn't necessarily mean that wasn't the procedure you needed to discover one of these 4 items. It just means that it didn't work. It means maybe the logs weren't there, or the person who really knows how to do it isn't there, etc. I'll help you through it, don't worry. The last thing is injects. So just like any of you that have played at CCDC or Seesaw or things like that, injects are things during an exercise that you get additional information. In this game, sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. There's one card that ends the game, and the way I generally do it is with things like this, depending on time. If we get it, I just say, well, we'll just keep going. The card that ends the game is, it was an authorized penetration test. If you get that inject, because it's like, blue team's responding to something, and it was all lies and smoke. But those injects can be good as well. Somebody can come back from Splunk training. They can come back from some other thing and say, oh, now we get a plus on these rolls, etc. Some of them will even reveal some of the cards for you. How do you get an inject? You get that one of three ways. You roll a 1. You roll a natural 20, not plus your modifiers, a natural 20. Or you fail 3 procedures in a row. So round 1, you roll, you get a 2. Round 2, it goes on. 3 procedures in a row, you fail, you get an inject. That doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. It could be good. You could get one of those other things, but that's when you get the injects. So let me stop there and ask that the folks that are playing come off mute and just introduce themselves and let me know. I want to know one thing. I want to know your name. And I want to know if you're new to Hack UCF, if you're on the board, if you're on ops, and just if you have any questions about the game as I've explained it. Because if you don't, then we'll go into it. So whoever, I don't know who's playing, so just come off mute and you guys can talk and just give me your names and how you're involved with Hack UCF right now.
Hey Ian, thanks for coming out. I guess I'll go first. I'm Colin. I am very active in Hack UCF. I've been here for a little while. Yeah. Excited.
Excellent, Colin. Thank you.
I'm Ryan. I am the VP this year. I've been here for a couple years. So.
Perfect.
I'm Alexis. Not only am I new to Hack UCF, but I am new to UCF to begin with. I am a freshman and decided to try my hand here.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'll go next. My name's Matt. I'm a freshman as well, and I'm new to Hack UCF.
Good.
Hey, I'm Sarah. I have been chilling around Hack UCF for a little while now. I'm pretty active in the club, and yeah.
All right. I think that was 5, right? Got everybody? Okay. If not, if I missed someone, please speak up now. Okay. So, any questions about the basic gameplay? And like I said, I'm going to guide you through it, where it's kind of a thought exercise, as a way to learn. But any questions about the gameplay? No? Okay. So let's actually take a look at the cards. So over here, I've got the cards laid out. So I've got the procedure cards that you can play that you currently get the +3s on. And I'm actually going to pull these up a little larger in a second. We've got our dice. If you want me to roll, I can roll. And then if you want one of these other procedure cards that we don't have yet, that you don't have the +3 on, they're over here. So, these cards are laid out just so as we play the game, we can come back to them. I also have a turn tracker so we can track what's done, because when you play these games, you go, oh, wait, did I play that card? Did we rotate it? Did we do whatnot? So we'll flip through these screens occasionally. Let's talk, and then actually here's the turn tracker that you'll see. So we'll take each round, we'll put in what you rolled and notes about the round itself, etc. So we can always come back to this and say, no, wait, we failed 3, or we only failed 2, whatever it was. Let's actually talk about your procedures, right? So here are the procedures that you have available to you to play with, right? So the 4 that you get that +3 bonus on are User and Entity Behavior Analytics, UEBA, NetFlow, ZeekBro, Real-Time Intelligence, Threat Analytics, RETA Analysis, and that's a Black Hills tool. That's a proprietary tool that they issue open source, but some of the other tools that kind of go into that are Security Onion and some that folks might be more familiar with. These 2 up top, and I should really explain what these are, because I realize the audience here is sometimes new. So User and Behavior Analytics. Notice it says on the card, it's like logging, but it actually works. And so some of these, you'll notice these cards are kind of sarcastic, but it looks for things like concurrent logins, velocity checks. So velocity check. Are they blurry? I apologize if they are. I'm just seeing in the chat there. Maybe I can zoom in on them a little. If you go, for those who are saying they're a little blurry, or maybe their link isn't that good, or maybe it's just getting some bugginess there, that page that I showed you before, Black Hills, Backdoors and Breaches, if you search for that, they have PDFs there that you can pull up these cards so you can look at them on your own as well. So User behavior analytics. It looks at behaviors. It looks at things like, what is the person, thank you, Ryan. What is the person doing? Were they logged in Kissimmee, Florida, and then 5 minutes later were logged in Ukraine? Is that possible if they're not on a VPN? Probably not. That's what's called a velocity check. Are they doing something they never do? They're connecting to finance systems, et cetera. And these tools analyze that behavior and potentially alert you. Zeek, NetFlow, these types of things that they're monitoring traffic, these are looking at actual traffic flows and logs for traffic. So it's actually looking at what these connections are doing. What are the processes they're doing? How is it working? So Security Onion, Elk, all of these tools are gathering data and logs from many, many different systems, network systems specifically, and then looking at how they're communicating with each other for malicious activity. Next one down is security information and event management. These tools are kind of logging correlation systems. So they might take user analytics, user behavior analytics data. They might take NetFlow data. They might take data from the server logs. They might take data from the actual local system logs, and they pull them all together, and they can create correlation rules that say, you know, these things on their own don't look suspicious, but together they look very suspicious. I had a VPN login from Ukraine plus administrative access to a server plus this other thing. And all these tools individually can't say, hey, I saw something too. Well, the SIM can. And then the last one that you get the +3 on is your legal and management teams, your crisis management. So do not discount that breach response is not just a technical game. There is a lot of soft skills. There's a lot of legal that gets involved. And for those of you who are maybe a little further along, maybe you're closer to the end of your collegiate career and have done some internships, maybe you've been involved in some of this at this point, where you learn a whole new set of skills as to how to gather information and how to respond and what makes a breach go from bad to worse. And if you've been reading some of these things where you see really bad vendor responses to breaches versus really, really good ones, you know why that crisis management is so important. So you can play any of those cards and get a +3, but you can also play these other cards. And I won't go through each of them, but I would highly suggest that you go through to the Black Hills website and grab the cards. If you don't already have a deck of your own, grab the PDFs that show all the cards, and then you can see them. I will guide you through these through each round though, but some of them are server analysis, actually looking at the server. Oh wait, I'm pressing the wrong button here. Server analysis, endpoint security protection analysis, internal segmentation. We already have SIM, we already have crisis management, we already have that one. Endpoint analysis, actually reviewing the endpoint in a digital forensics type way to see what we can see has happened on the box. We talked about that one. Isolation, going through and deploying isolation, getting systems off the network that potentially have an issue. Firewall log review, pretty straightforward, but actually looking at what connections have come through a firewall, and we're back to server analysis. So those are some of the other procedures you can pull from. So that all being said, that is the basic play, and those are the procedures that you have available to you. Now we'll go back to cards, and I'm going to tell you a story. And this is where the game starts. So you are all part of a junior security operations center team. You've been hired, you've gotten out of school, this is your first big job, you're on the overnights, and suddenly you've got reports of people posting things to news service accounts that they aren't supposed to be posting. Specifically, your company does security operations for a newswire, a company that goes through and actually feeds news out from different sources. Think kind of like the Associated Press. And all of a sudden, different news outlets with their logins are posting strange and unusual news posts. And suddenly you realize there's something weird going on, and we need to figure out, is this a system problem? Are we being hacked? Has something gone wrong? Is this an April Fool's joke? What is going on? So you're sitting in your SOC, you're getting reports coming in of strange and unusual news stories getting posted, aliens abducting cows in Vermont, things like that. and they're only getting weirder, and you realize this isn't a mistake. This isn't just a weird news day. Someone is manipulating this, whether it be a system failure or a breach or a hack of some sort. So this is the point where you can ask some questions. And as the incident master, I will go through and I will tell you as much as I can, and then we'll choose one of these cards to go with. So who would like to ask some questions? Shout out some questions.
Ooh.
Don't be shy. No, there are no wrong questions.
How large is our system in terms of like what we're looking at for what handles this portion of...
Very large.
Very large? Okay.
Very large. It's a globally distributed system operated in many, many, many countries. You've got offices all over the world.
What do we currently have in place to handle something like this? Do we have any tools that we've already got?
These procedures.
Hey.
Yeah, so, and that's the way the game is played. So what it does is it forces a constraint. You can't just go through and say, well, let's try using our next generation AI cyber, you can't do that. These are the tools that you have available in your organization. Some of them you understand better, some of them not so much. So right now, let's ask this question. What do you know? You know that there are systems, or you know that there are news stories being posted in your system, and you don't know where or how they're getting posted there.
All right.
What might you want to look at?
So did we reach out to the company that this is happening, and did we ask them if this is something that they're expecting?
Great question. Yeah. So that would probably fall under your crisis management. You could go out and say, hey, is this part of a test or something like that? That is a very good question, but I will answer that because it's not really a procedure you can play. So yeah, you contacted the red team and said, hey, folks, are you doing anything kind of weird right now? Because if so, we're seeing a lot of weird stuff going on. And they responded back, no, nothing weird going on.
So they don't know something weird is going on, but we have an idea that there's something going on.
Yeah, you know what's going on. You know that something weird is going on. You see the news stories, but you do not actually have them, or you don't. Well, forgive me. You see the news stories, but you don't know where they're coming from.
Are these news stories like, do they get made on like a machine, or are users logged per se? Like a user makes a news story and then they get logged as making it?
Great question. So yes, they do, but you'd have to play a procedure to find out if you can track that.
Then let's what's the second card? The one with the face on it?
Let me go back to your procedures here. Make them a little bigger for you. You've got, if you wanted to play one of the cards where you get a plus on it, which I would highly suggest this early in the game, because remember, these will have a cooldown where once you use them, if you use these later in the game, you might not get to use them again. So you've got user behavior analytics, you've got net flow, you've got analyzing the network traffic, you've got your SIM analyzing all your logs coming in, and then you have your crisis management team, your legal folks, etc.
Do we want to do maybe the SIM log analysis and use that to see kind of either what user is being used the most or what machine is being used the most to make these?
Sure, let's go.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, no, I think that is excellent. So I'm going to move these over here. So who said SIEM? Who said wanted to do SIEM?
Ryan did. I did.
All right, Ryan, that means you have to roll.
Oh boy.
Would you like me to roll the dice here, or would you, and we will trust you, we will believe you.
Yeah, I can roll it.
Thank you, John, for finding the procedure cards and putting them in there for folks.
Oh, nice. He did find them.
All right. So Ryan, would you like me to roll, or would you like to use the Google Dice roller?
I just rolled and got a 7.
A 7. Oof. So that's rough. So a couple things are going to happen, right? So let's go back to cards. Okay. So notice I took these cards off the table just so I can see the bottoms of them, and I'll put them back in play as you find them. But yeah, so you played your user behavior analytics, and we're going to turn that one because now you have to go around 3 more turns to get that. So you pulled up user behavior analytics, and what you found out was, ooh, wait a minute. Hey, did we have this on the latest version? Because right now the software that we've got for user behavior analytics isn't capturing the traffic that we want to see who logged in and from where. And it turns out upon review, yeah, if you upgrade the agents that you've got deployed, you'll be able to see it. But right now, you can't see it. So unfortunately, that didn't work. There's also, stepping away from the story, there are scenarios where you can make the right decision and the procedure works, but it doesn't discover anything. And that's going to be based on the story. And at the end of this, we'll break down the story and I'll explain what was actually going on. So that didn't work, unfortunately. So let's go to our cards and tracking form. And I'm going to come over here, and we rolled, I think you said a 7, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So that was a 10 total. So it was a 7 plus 3. And failed. And that was EUBA and user behavior analytics. And cool. So fully deployed. Okay, so that is our first one. At this point, what we can do is we can go to our next round. So you know that didn't work. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that user behavior analytics wouldn't have discovered something. All it means is that you didn't have the right person awake, caffeinated fully enough, agents deployed, whatever it is. So with that said, what you've got now, NetFlow, security information event, your SIEM, and crisis management, or you can use any of those other procedures that we had inside of here, server analysis, et cetera, but you just don't get the additional modifier. And for those paying attention here in the chat, John put the PDF for the procedure cards. If you want to have them all up in front of you, you can open those there now.
So I don't know if this is a question I can ask, but like, how do they have to log in order to create a news story?
Great question. No, that's an excellent question. So they have to log in. They have to log in to create a news story through a global portal. They log into that global portal, and they're able to go through and post a story. It is uniquely tied to their username. Most of the accounts have multi-factor authentication on them, but that's not necessarily always true. And they log into that portal, and they are able to post stories from wherever they are in the world, because like I said, it's a news agency.
So who can make an account and post a story?
Great question. So there is an identity and access management team, and these are the people that actually go through and provision this. In this particular scenario, these are privileged users that get verified. So they are reporters. They have to go through training on what they can post and push out onto this news wire, and then their access is then granted for that. So it's a small set of users because they can post directly to this news wire. They have to go through training, and they have that ability to go through and post directly to a newswire that hits other news agencies.
So do we know what users created the stories that we think are suspicious?
Maybe. That's where you'd have to use one of your procedure cards.
Gotcha.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can we fire that person who failed to do the task correctly?
Can we fire the person who failed the EUBA role? I wouldn't suggest it, because everyone fails occasionally. And you might have some of the best people in the world, and they just had a bad day. And
unacceptable.
They come in, they save the company.
We might be sitting here paying a lot of money to train these people to do it right in the future.
Sure.
So can we use the SIEM card to see who made those stories?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could
Go
certainly
for it.
try. So let's take a look here. Yeah, you could certainly try. So you want to try and use SIEM?
Yep.
All right. So Sarah, you are going to roll. Would you like me to roll, or would you like to use the Google Dice Roller?
I can use my Google.
Okay.
Oh, I rolled a 1.
A 1. Well, I mean, that's fun in that we get to execute one of the inject. So let's
Critical
go back
failure.
to the cards, turns, and me. Okay.
2 people losing jobs now.
And this is where the game starts to get fun because we start to be a little playful and whatnot. So we're going to, oh wait, no, it was Seam that did that. So we're going to move this over. Great, so we're tracking that. This will also turn because now we're on the second game there. So we're going to get an inject. We tried, oh, I'm doing that in the wrong spot. We're going to try Seam, and now I'll tell you the story. So you got logged into the Seam, and yeah, guess what? The database crashed. I mean, that one just boom fell on its face. And during the time that this stuff was happening, yeah, none of the logs, your parser that's actually going through and trying to grab all the logs from the system is completely overwhelmed. Nothing's getting written to the database. Now you got to spend time getting the Seam back in line because you don't know if this attack is stopped, but you didn't get any information out of it. So it's not a good day. Now, what we're going to do, though, is I've got our inject cards. I'm going to hold them up like this. And the way I generally do this virtually is we'll hold it up. And I think that's pretty spread out. And then I'm going to move my finger across, and you just tell me when to stop. So,
Stop.
this one?
Stop. Yeah, do it.
Right.
Is this your card?
Is this your card? Guess what it is, because we chose it. What did we get? Ooh, I'm trying to do this backwards. Data posted to Pastebin. So that's blurry, but I'm going to pull it up over here.
Oh, boy.
The data posted to Pastebin. Let's find it. There it is. Data posted to Pastebin. Bummer. The attackers have posted internal sensitive data to Pastebin. Your customers are now informed of the attack by the media. It happens a lot, but it's not just pure evil. Time to bring in upper management and the legal team. So good news here is that this particular inject doesn't have any like additional things, right? You're not going to lose cards. You're not going to end the game, etc. But what it now means is that your breach has gotten worse. While you're trying to solve the problem, now you're getting reports in, hey, Brian Krebs is calling, you know, somebody from Ars Technica, Catlin Campanu. They're like, hey, I noticed that all your data's out on Pastebin. What's going on? And now you've got to, and I woke up right. It was all a dream. But yeah, so that's a bad day because before you were dealing with it internally, right? And now you've got to start answering to the world before you were necessarily prepared to. So I'm going to come over here. Let me just make one more update to the cards, turns, and me. Perfect. And database crashed. And the inject was Pastebin. Okay. So we are on to turn 3. Now, remember what happens when we have 3 failed turns?
Now, I have one question real quick.
Yes.
Before we go any further.
Yeah,
we have a card for crisis management. It's got the note that says counteracts data uploaded to Pastebin inject card.
That's right.
You just said there's no real downfall to
well in this scenario, yeah, we can go through and play that, and then you don't have, I think there's another rule where if you get and I didn't cover it, unfortunately. I should have covered it. There's another rule that you can do. It's a house rule where if you get a certain number of injects, that you also the game ends. But I generally don't play that with beginners. So yeah, we can absolutely clear that, and you don't have that there. But I just didn't play that rule for this round because it makes it even more kind of complicated.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but great call out. Very, very important to pay attention to that. But keep in mind, and this is something as well, you can go through and say, hey, Pastebin, take that data down. Do you think that solves the data off the internet? Like, no. Someone's already gotten it. They've already taken it. It's gone. My favorite example of that is the Super Bowl photos of Beyonce when she's dancing, and she was awesome. She killed it. This is a couple of years ago, and she's just dancing, going nuts. But if you get the still photos, it's a bunch of photos just looking like, you know, like that as she's really going at it. And her lawyers tried to get those removed from the internet and couldn't. I mean, you can search it now and find these photos of her making funny faces and whatnot.
Like the Streisand effect.
It is like the Streisand effect, but even more so, if Beyonce's lawyers can't get something off the internet, believe me, you can't. That's where we're at with that. So, Seam failed. You still don't know who potentially posted these. New articles keep going up. What should we do next? We can't use our sim yet. We got another 2 rounds before we can use our user behavior analytics. You can still use crisis management, and you can still use NetFlow.
I think we should use NetFlow.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, pretty
Maybe
much.
that net flow and reader analysis, boys.
Okay, very good. So who said NetFlow?
I did. Matt.
Okay, Matt.
I want you to roll the die.
You want me to
please.
roll? Ooh.
Yeah, because Google seems not in our favor. So
Google does seem to be messing with you. Okay.
Also,
So-
watching you
Google.
roll a die way more entertaining than listening to
True.
numbers.
All right. Hold on. Yeah, that was a 5. So
all right,
yeah, that was
you
not.
didn't blow on it. That's why.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
All right, there we go.
I get to choose. So let's see. All right, we blew on it. 17. That you were right. Okay, so we'll do. Oh,
Thank
you
you.
can't see it off screen. So 17. There it is.
The unnatural 20.
Okay. Not an that's right. It's an unnatural 20. So we've got our inject up here. So let me go back to our cards, turns, and me. So we got a 17. 17. We did, what did we do? We did NetFlow,
Reader.
and we were successful. And guess what? That actually gives you your C2 and exfil. So you got one of your 4 cards, and it turns out C2 and exfil is being done over a website, Gmail, Tumblr, Salesforce, and Twitter. That is how they're going through and getting data out of your environment. So maybe, and Pastebin, very good. So it's actually very good. You're catching what that actual scenario is kind of laying out for you. So the attackers, as they went to get stuff out, they were using some of these services, Twitter, a number of different social media services as the exfil, because what they realized was that, oh, wait a minute, none of your social media, none of these SaaS services in the cloud are blocked on these servers. All, SFTP, SSH, I can't connect outbound to that, but I can open Twitter, I can open Pastebin, and I can start pulling data out of the environment. And in this particular case, maybe the news stories, maybe that's just FUD. Maybe that's a fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Maybe that's just trying to keep you off the scent while they're doing something else. They're pulling out employee records, posting them to Pastebin. They're pulling out customer records, posting them to Pastebin, etc. So you were successful and awesome. So we've got one of our four cards now, and we are on to 4.
2 million IQ play right there. That's all I gotta say.
So where were we? Let's see, we're on
Galaxy
4, so
level.
this would be here now, and seam would come down. Very good. All right. So you still can't play your user behavior analytics. That will come back into play next round. Your sim is 2 rounds from now. You can use NetFlow again. You can use crisis management or any of the other cards that are available. Why do I say you can use NetFlow again? You can read through the visual guide, something I didn't mention, but if it came up, it's for the sake of speed and time on these scenarios. If there is 2 of the 4 cards that you need to discover, if 2 of them can be discovered with NetFlow, I only give you 1. So it doesn't necessarily mean you can't play NetFlow again. And plus, when you are successful, I don't put the cards into a cooldown. It's not like somebody's got to go, read the man pages and figure out how to use this. They killed it, and they can dive back into it and keep using that tool. So we know how they're getting data out. We don't know who's doing it, and we don't know why they're doing it, and we don't know how they're staying on our systems. So what would we want to look at next?
Can we search these platforms to see what kind, search it for maybe our company's name that we're protecting to see what data they're taking out?
So you're saying kind of look at Pastebin and see what the data coming out is?
Yeah, maybe dork Google for the name of our company with Pastebin and see what data is being exfilled.
Yeah, that's a really, really good, and that's not exact. I mean, I love that answer. It's just not one of the procedures that are in the game. So for everyone who's listening, that is a fantastic breach response tactic to say, how far has this gotten? Do we see specific Twitter accounts that are tied to known threat actors that do things a certain way? APT groups, which are advanced persistent threat groups, often have a playbook that they use. And it's like, oh, well, if I know that this Iranian group is posting my data, I know that they use these tactics and procedures, and I can start looking for them. So Sarah, excellent question and excellent thought process. It's just not one of the cards the game has. And I'm actually going to talk to John Strand about that, because one of the things you can do in the game on that first link that I gave you is you can actually make your own cards and submit them and say, hey, Google dorking would be really good for this, and here's why. And they might go into some of the expansion packs. So great question. If we were to kind of go in that route, I would think that maybe kind of going that route, you would want to look at some sort of endpoint or server analysis, kind of staying in that vein to say.
Kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, server analysis. Yeah.
Actually, I was going to say endpoint protection analysis.
Endpoint, yeah.
Knowing exactly what's going on there, because assume they have endpoint protections, making sure they're operating. They're kind of useless if they're not operating correctly.
So because we can't tell where or who's logging in, maybe our endpoint protection analysis can tell us, well, wait a minute, there's some malicious activity on this PC, and oh, by the way, all these posts are coming from there. So that sounds like the thought process you're going with?
Yeah.
All right, I think that's probably wise. Who wants to roll? There was some discussion there, so who hasn't rolled yet?
I think you should roll.
Yeah, I was about to say, I still want you to roll.
Oh, we're just doing this again? Okay, fair enough.
You got to blow on it, too.
Okay. I will blow on it, but I only gave you the one where I'll give you the do-over, because I didn't blow on it, so, All right, so here we go. I'm doing like this, and then there we go, and then that's a 1.
Ian, I don't want you to roll for us anymore.
All right.
Blow hard
That
enough.
2 runs already? Oh, boy.
Okay, so same thing again. We will lay out the injects, and I will kind of go over them, and somebody tell me when to stop.
Take the third from the top, David Blaine.
The third from the top? All right. What did we get? Oh, hey, that's a good one. So give the defenders a random procedure card. So this is a good one. So let's go into the procedure cards, and let's go take a look at them. And I'm sorry, the inject cards, forgive me. So inject cards, give the player, take one procedure card away. Give defenders a random procedure card. So out of here, I'm just going to grab a random card and give it to you. Which one we land on? Endpoint, security, protection, which is what you just played. But let's pull that over. But now you'll at least get a plus to it when you can use it again. So can you see that down there? Oh, I can't tell if you can see that yet.
Yeah.
All right. But you get a random card. And basically all that means is now that card, if you were to play it again, you get the +3 to it. So let me go over here, and we will, what did we roll? We rolled a 1. It failed. That was endpoint. Okay, so why did it fail? Well, you went through and you searched all the endpoints, and you didn't see any malicious activity, but you noticed, well, wait a minute, only 70% of our endpoints are reporting back what's going on. And you find out that one of your collectors that's operating in the United States isn't gathering data from the endpoints. They're phoning home, but it's not capturing it. So you don't have, so you say, well, 70% dice are rigged. They're weighted dice. That you find out that, hey, we've got 70% coverage, but we're, that 30%, that could be where the problem is. So unfortunately, don't know.
Bro, they should fire us. We're so bad.
So I want to, and I know that you're, and we're having fun, but this happens to the best teams. I liked what was said earlier, like hug ops, where it's like you're just beating your head against stuff, and it's okay. Like, it's okay. Bad days happen. It's gonna get sorted out. This is just not going particularly well for you right now. But realize you've got one part of it, and you've still got 5 turns left. So, or 6 turns technically. So let's get into that because I want to try and be cognizant of time. I'm not exactly sure when we started the game, but I wanted to keep it right at about 45 minutes to an hour. Cool. So what are we going to try next?
So considering the – oh, wait, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was saying, considering the rule Ian said earlier with the net flow, there was 2 cards that could have been played. You only chose 1, correct?
There is, but keep in mind, I'm only telling you the rules. I'm not saying that that's a great idea. I'm just saying that don't count net flow out because you've played it. Another reminder here is the failure that you had on user and entity behavior analytics. That card is back in play this round.
Okay, well, that's probably where we should go.
I would.
And important.
Probably a good idea. Okay, y'all don't want me to roll, so
I got an actual D20 here instead of using Google.
There you
so
go.
Let's use this one.
Go, Colin.
16.
16. Very good. Yeah, so you smoked it there. Excellent. So, user and behavior analytics. Guess what? You found the initial compromise. And let's go through and take a look. The initial compromise was an insider threat. The call is coming from within the building.
Called it.
RIP Twitter.
Yeah. So someone in your organization who has some sort of approved access is actually doing this. Now, you're not 100% certain how they're doing it across so many accounts, but you can clearly tell that this is someone who has access to your network, has privilege, and they are able to go through and make these changes.
So does this include like them having unknowingly given their credentials away?
It does include that. It absolutely does include that. Very, 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 very astute.
Now, my favorite question is, do we have any cards, because I kind of scrolled through them, but that would be good for figuring out if somebody was affected by a phishing attack?
Yeah, so you can, your SIEM would definitely do that. End user behavior analytics would do that as well, but that already revealed a card for you. Really any of the cards that are looking at server logging and behavior. So I would say probably the one that you would want the most is server analysis, if that's what you wanted to go with. Because the way we could look at that is server analysis. You're looking at your Microsoft Exchange server. You're looking at logs from your Azure environment to say, let me look at the mail server logs and see if someone's gotten some dicey email that potentially they clicked on a link. Or you could say, let's look at my Proofpoint logs, and I count a Proofpoint appliance as a server in this game because they don't actually have like appliance logs. So I get to be a little flexible.
Gotcha.
So yeah, server analysis would probably be the one that would answer that question for you. Keep in mind though that endpoint analysis or any of those, depending on the tool you have. If you've got McAfee or actually a better example would be like a Carbon Black or a CrowdStrike that's looking at behavior when somebody does something, and that is an endpoint that you can analyze using those tools.
Yeah.
Do that too.
I was going to say, if it's an insider threat, might be someone who might be mad or could be someone that, like they said, may have given out their credentials to somewhere else. So maybe we could check their behavior analysis, see if they're logging in from somewhere completely different or something like that.
It could be that guy I fired first round. Just thinking.
Hey.
Oh my God.
Watch
it
it.
all makes sense.
Do you guys think that firewall log stuff would help? So we can kind of see maybe where it's coming from or where it's going to internally, and then we can isolate from there.
Sure.
Sure, go for
Let's go for it.
Sure.
All right, so I was making some notes here to make sure we're keeping track here. So what was the card you wanted to play?
The firewall log review.
Firewall log review. Very good. Okay, who's gonna roll?
You do
I'll
want to
do
trust
it.
Google again, or
I'll
just
do it. I'll do it. I got a
Okay.
D20. Let me
And you rolled very well last time, so. What did you roll last time? A 15?
16.
right.
16.
I got a 9.
A
Damn.
9. Yeah, and
Just
unfortunately,
shy.
that is not one of your cards that was there. So you looked at the firewall rules, and here's the unfortunate thing about firewall log analysis. If you've got a layer 3 firewall that's just looking at port, protocol, source, and destination, remember what I told you earlier, that those servers allowed connections to pastebin, other sites, etc. It's not going to block them. It's not going to catch them. What it will tell you is if there's anything going to sites that you don't recognize. It might allow you to see command and control traffic to say, well, wait a minute, why is somebody connecting to 443 in this weird site in China, or this weird site in Ukraine or South America, or, you know, pick your geographic region. Unfortunately, though, you checked the logs and you just didn't see anything weird. As a matter of fact, for this particular scenario, nothing seems off. All the traffic, except for the stuff that you discovered earlier that was going to, you know, Twitter and pastebin and whatnot from servers, which was odd, all the other traffic seemed perfectly normal. All stuff that you've seen before, all approved hosts, all approved ports, all approved protocols. So yeah, you just didn't find anything from it. So we had what was that you rolled this time? It was a 9.
Yeah.
Okay, 9.
Sorry,
And
boys.
Failed. That's all right. So failed, and that was firewall. Okay, so let's get on to 7 here. Now you'll notice we're starting to go faster here because we're getting a feel for the game. So the guy just doxed himself. Okay. All right, that failed.
which of our main procedures are valid? Has any of them come back up?
Yes, forgive me. Thank you. I didn't turn that one. I think I already turned this one. So you've got seam back. All your main ones that you had in the beginning are back in play. Firewall just turned. And then when did you do endpoint security? You did that at 4. So we have 5, 6. That'd be 2 turns. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, you're there. So you'll get endpoint back. You'll get endpoint back before the end of the game. You still have endpoint analysis, isolation, internal segmentation, and server analysis that you have not either tried yet. No, you haven't tried yet.
I'm thinking server analysis or SIEM. I don't know which one.
Server analysis.
Yeah.
Let's go for it. Server analysis.
Actually, wait. He said they would both catch a phishing attempt, and we get a bonus on SIEM. So why wouldn't we go
Yeah,
with
let's
SIEM?
do SIEM.
All right, then
We
see.
don't get the bonus for server.
No, that's very. So now you're metagaming. You're gaming the game, which is good. So okay, so we're gonna try. Who's rolling?
I got the D20 here. Let's
Do
go
it.
for
All right, you're the designated dice roller now.
13.
13. Very good.
You said
Okay.
nat 20?
Colin rolls
No,
from now on.
13.
Technically, you rolled a 13, but it's 13 plus 3, so it'd be a 16. Not that that does anything for you, but you did, what was it, SIEM? It was successful. And yeah, you got in, you started tearing up the logs. Remember earlier in the game, the sim wasn't running right, but during the gameplay, one of you got in there, got everything running right, and thankfully, all the parsers hadn't burned through. They actually still had everything cached, and everything has been imported in. All the correlation rules run against it, and you found nothing. All the correlation rules, all the behavior, everything looked normal. Everything looked completely normal. Now, keep in mind, you're probably going, no, that's ridiculous. Remember that we're dealing with an insider threat. So any of this stuff that you're looking at, if it's an insider threat and they regularly do the types of things that now they're using maliciously, the correlation rules might not show you anything. So I think that was an excellent play. I think you made the right call. And just like in real life, sometimes it's a Picard quote, you can do everything right and still fail. That is just life. So unfortunately, we are on to round 8. You still have 2 cards that you need, 2 of our things you need to discover. You need to discover your pivot and escalate. and you need to discover how they're staying persistent in the environment. So what do we look at now? And actually, there we go. Okay.
Oh, I guess seeing as it's an internal thing, we could try the user behavior again.
I think that's an excellent idea. Because we know that that's an insider threat, and we know that they are moving data out, but we really don't know how they're doing a lot of stuff. So what does the rest of the team think?
I think he's probably got the right pathing there.
Okay. Who's rolling?
Yeah, let's go
You
for
got
it.
a designated roller again?
Do I want me to roll again? I'll roll again.
Do it.
15.
See, there we go. So 15.
Starting to get concerned with that die.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so you did UEBA, and that was successful, and that was a very, 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 very good idea. But it didn't show anything. So, you went through, and I think you've parsed out, didn't reveal. So I think at this point you've parsed out everything you can out of UBA. You know that they're doing so. You know it's an insider threat. You know that the call is coming from inside the house. You know that they are using administrative tools, and they're doing what is commonly referred to by attackers as living off the land. They're in your environment, and they don't need to bring in a bunch of hacking tools, because they have access to all the internal tools that they need to accomplish their actions on objective. So they're using your internal tools. All the behaviors look perfectly normal, and they're still posting news articles that are getting stranger and weirder and more salacious. So that didn't reveal anything for you, unfortunately. So we are down to our last two moves.
Yeah, I was thinking about what Ethan said in the chat. Like maybe we could just do something like isolation or like internal segmentation. I don't know what the latter is, but it sounds something that might work. Making like pinpoint.
Do we know what endpoint it is per se, though?
Let's go back to procedures and let's actually take a look at that. So internal segmentation, turn on your host-based firewalls, segment different organizational units, treat the internal network as hostile, because it is. Yeah, I mean, you've got an insider threat. You are trying to figure out how to stop them. I mentioned internal tools. That card does seem like maybe that could be a good move. But again, you're the team that has to make the call. Some of the other things that you haven't tried yet are endpoint analysis and when did we do endpoint? We did 1, 2, 3. Actually, you've got the other one back now too. So you've got endpoint security protection analysis. You could play again. You haven't tried server analysis yet. You haven't tried endpoint analysis, and you haven't tried. And think of internal segmentation and isolation in this particular game as having much of the same outcome. You're talking about isolating specific network or host versus segmenting things off from each other. So we could get into network architecture discussions, but for this game, think of them as ostensibly the same thing. So you could isolate things, you can analyze the server, you can analyze the endpoint.
And which ones are we missing out of the 4 again?
Well, remember that you fail whenever you tried to look at your endpoint originally, when you tried to do the endpoint security protection analysis, looking at your tools like Carbon Black or McAfee or those tools, that failed. So you don't know if that might have given you an answer. So yeah, you don't know what's going on in your endpoints yet.
Dang.
I mean,
that's one of the endpoint ones.
I mean, considering like that nothing really showed up fishy on the logs, I don't think maybe the SIEM might not work that well for it, or maybe server analysis might not work well either. You know, because it doesn't really show up as unusual since this guy may have been doing it for a long time.
So what do we think? Gotta make a call.
What round are we on? We're on round 9 right
9.
now? Oof.
I nominate Sarah to choose.
Ooh.
Sarah, you
Okay,
have
Sarah.
the
Isn't
power.
Sarah a chair right now?
Wait,
Oh,
what?
nope, she's back.
No, she's there. They nominated you to make the call in a clutch moment.
No. Can I ask a question that's probably going to be stupid?
There are no stupid questions.
Do we have a way to like read our like personnel emails to like see if anyone sent out their credentials?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the questions you're asking because they're exactly the type of questions you should be asking as breach response. But we have to fit them in the context of the game. So let me see if there's one of these that would kind of give you that.
I think you kind of said it wasn't server analysis.
It was
'Cause-
server analysis was the one example that I gave, saying we would treat that as kind of looking at maybe Proofpoint or any appliance logs that might tell us if somebody clicked on a fish, because there really isn't a card procedure like that in the deck right now. I would also give you that for endpoint analysis, where maybe we go in and we can see the indicators of compromise from a phishing campaign where either fileless malware is running in memory or something else where we can say, oh, yep, no, that's a specific fileless malware that's part of a phishing campaign. So I give you that question under endpoint analysis for this one. And again, that's me kind of stretching what the procedure does to fit it into the game narrative.
All right, I guess we're doing endpoint analysis, boys.
We haven't tried it yet, so.
So let me ask you though, do you want endpoint security protection analysis where you get a +3, or do you want endpoint analysis where you don't get the +3?
Nah, man, we want the +3.
Want the +3? Okay. All right. So the +3, who's rolling?
All right, I got the die here.
Oh, fail us now.
All right, I'm actually like don't want to roll anymore because I got the third 16. Like I'm starting to get concerned.
Whatever. That's how dice rolls work.
It is and it isn't. It's a resin die that sat in my car for a while.
Oh.
Oh.
Oof.
I remember that dice set.
Yeah, that one that's been in there for like 6 months.
Okay, so we got a 16. That was a +3 as well. Again, not that that matters. That was successful. And huzzah, you did discover what they're doing and why it's so hard to figure them out. So you found persistence. They're adding new users. Remember earlier on, you said somebody asked, I think it might have been Sarah asking really great questions. Somebody asked, how are people getting added in? And it was persistence that I gave you, right? Yes. Okay. So new user added. What they're doing with their abilities is they're just creating random new users that look completely legitimate, but because they're not tied to any specific organization, no one's calling saying, hey, well, I didn't post a story about UFOs stealing Chipotle because of 5G COVID-19. I didn't do that, right? They're not doing that. What they're doing is they're creating whole new accounts and posting them as new news organizations. So they're adding in these new users and they are firing off these news reports, and you're getting more and more calls in the SOC saying, where are all these weird stories coming from? Which ones are real and which ones aren't? So you've got one turn left.
So, question, do we have a way to block out all news sources that haven't been verified as legitimate?
That is excellent. Yeah. So yes, you do. And that might stop them from exfilling more data. But the point of this game is discovering the whole thing, not necessarily shutting it down. So with the idea that once you know how the entire breach occurred, then you can go through and then you go into your response mode where you say, okay, now we know what's going on. Let's now clean everything up. Now, is that how things work in the really real world? No, you would probably go through and say, get these hosts off the network, isolate them, do a bunch of things. But in gameplay, that's kind of how we approach it for this game.
Now, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the only thing we have to figure out left is, I guess, how they're doing it. Is that what that yellow card is for?
You need the pivot and escalate. So how did they get to the point, remember, that they're an insider, they have some sort of credentials, maybe their administrative credentials may allow them to add new users, maybe they don't. but what is allowing them to go through and get into the environment, escalate their privileges so that they're now able to create all these new users and do that. So we're assuming that they're an insider threat that has these privileges, but we don't know yet. And that's kind of what happens in breach response. You start kind of throwing out theories. Well, what if they're doing this? What if they're doing that? You know, let's go look at these logs. Let's go look at those logs. So yeah, you got to figure out how they've made that move. So one last turn.
All right, so
We got the persistence.
the information we have is we know how they're staying persistent. They keep adding new users. We know that the NetFlow found something. I don't remember precisely what it was. It was an insider threat. So we know it's an insider threat who is basically adding users to stay in, and that's pretty much all we know right now. There's a third card up there, but I think the third card
you had an
was,
insider threat, and then we had the C2 and exfil.
Yeah, so we also know how they're getting stuff out. That's what it was. So right now it's really looking like it's probably somebody with administrative privileges making new accounts.
It does, but you haven't proven that yet, and that's the thing. It's not, to quote the old Training Day movie with Denzel Washington, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
And even if it is someone with administrative privileges, we don't know whether or not it actually is the actual person or their creds were stolen.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah,
Very, 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 very good point, tying that back together from earlier.
But the point I'm making is we're on our last turn. We have to kind of tie these together and make like one final hurrah.
I'll make one more monkey wrench.
Then how about we
Before you go, one more monkey wrench in there. You were successful with endpoint security protection analysis. Remember, just because you were successful once, there might be multiple cards that would find something.
Kind of where I was going was we could do the server analysis if it's like an AD thing, or if we do endpoint protection, maybe we can find what they're using as the kind of, or what if they're using to get their privileges that they shouldn't be having.
I was gonna say we could either try doing the endpoint security protection analysis again, or if we feel really confident from the inside, maybe internal segmentation.
I think internal segmentation is kind of outside what we're looking at, right? Because we already know the 3 points that we have is that it is that we know how they're staying persistent, we know how they're getting information out, and we know it's an insider threat. Kind of splitting our network, we're going to get the same information, really, right?
Probably.
But can we block? Can we try to block?
These are all very good theories.
Can endpoint tell us what computers have accessed the specific sites that are being exfilled? The data is being exfilled to.
Endpoint security protection analysis, I would give you that one. That in this scenario, yes, because a lot of these tools, the endpoint security tools, like say a Carbon Black or one that actually looks at processes to say, this is the process chain, this bad thing happened, and the reason we think it is because this, and this happened. For the sake of this game, I would give you that, yes.
You want to just do the endpoint security protection analysis again, because that seems like the best option.
Why not? Let's do it.
All right, who's rolling?
Colin.
All right, I'll roll it. I'm sorry. It's a 1.
It's a 1.
No.
Okay, so 1, it failed. So endpoint security again. We'll save that. Okay, so that's the end of the game. Let's actually look. Let's do the inject though, because maybe there's a magic save in here. So who's gonna pull the inject? Because we rolled a 1. So tell me when to stop.
Do it. There.
Management has just approved the release of a new procedure, internal network capture and analysis +5 modifier for network capture and analysis tasks. So that doesn't help you now because this would do a +5 had you gotten this earlier in the game, and the one that you played isn't a network analysis tool. So unfortunately, it doesn't hurt you, but it doesn't pull it out from the jaws of defeat. So unfortunately, you did not get all 4 by the last one. And Colin, I'm going to make you feel real bad, and I don't mean to, because had you been successful, you would have found that the pivot and escalate card was local privilege escalation, and endpoint analysis would have, the card that you played, endpoint security analysis, would have gotten it for you. So, yeah, so unfortunately, you did not get it. So it was the card was local privilege escalation. So,
well, life's a gamble.
Yeah, life's a gamble. Yep.
I don't feel bad at all. The dice is broken.
Right. You all did great, though. You were and this is the point of the game. You go through and have these discussions and think through problems, because the most important thing you can do during breach response is calmly think through possibilities and what we can try and what we haven't tried. So this is really the point of the game, is to get comfortable thinking through how you would look at these challenges. So do you want to hear what the whole thing was? Yeah, sure you do. So what was the actual thing that was going on? Well, there's a reason that I said a news company and not a company like Twitter. So I was basing this off of the most recent Bitcoin scamming thing. I said a news AP wire, but really in my head, what I was deferring to was the insider attack, where a phishing email got the credentials for the admin panel, and they basically lost complete control of their infrastructure. So in this scenario, when we said it's an insider threat, it wasn't that necessarily the insider themselves in the story that I was telling was the problem. It's that it was coming in as if it was an insider, making it nearly impossible to take any of the indicators of compromise that you would generally have to say, well, this isn't the right user, they shouldn't be doing this. Well, this account that got compromised, yeah, no, it's often able to do these things. Also, kind of tied into that, I always, whenever I build these campaigns, especially for students, I like to base them off of new news stories. So since we're talking about insider threat, it was just released that a Tesla was able to, in one of their gigafactories, able to thwart an insider straight up espionage style attack, where a Russian operative, not necessarily tied to the Russian government that we know of, but a Russian operative of some organization approached one of the engineers and said, I will give you $1 million to put this ransomware in the environment. And they said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And the next day walked into the security team and said, hey, guess what? This guy just offered me this money, and if we get the FBI involved, I think we can take them down. And they actually ran a sting operation and were able to catch this person. So insider threat stuff is big in the news right now. So what happened in this scenario is someone had their credentials compromised. It could have been phishing, it could have been password reuse, it could have been any number of things. You'll remember in the beginning I said some accounts do have multi-factor and some don't. What's humorous is the worst people about multi-factor are often the most privileged accounts, because they go, oh, I've got to do some testing right now, and I'm going to turn my multi-factor off while I do that, and then I forgot to turn it back on. Or I'm going to set it up so from my desktop, I never have to multi-factor again, and they get some sort of malware on their PC that all they need to do is have the credentials to get logged in, and now they're operating as an administrator. So this user ended up being an account that looked like an insider but wasn't an insider. They then used the ability to add new users to kind of obfuscate what they were doing. So you were trying to look around, and until you realized, oh, wait a minute, there's all these new users that have been added that aren't actual legitimate customers. That's what's going on. The reason I chose the Gmail, Twitter, Salesforce, Twitter C2 is because what I was thinking of was the Twitter Bitcoin scam. And really what was happening is the action on objective wasn't necessarily exfilling data. It was going through and causing chaos. And we're actually seeing a lot of that with bots heading up to the election, going through and just causing chaos on trusted news wires. And of course, they were able to add those users because with their privileges, they were able to use vulnerabilities to escalate and get the ability to do IAM work. You remember I talked about the IAM team, the Identity and Access Management team. So they're an administrator, but they're not supposed to be able to add users. That's supposed to go through IAM, but they were able to use their privileges to go through, modify their own rights, and then get the ability to add users. Because just because you're an admin on a system in a lot of big organizations, like we said, it's a huge global organization, even the administrators can't add users. They don't have access to Active Directory. They might have administrative access to the news posting tool, but the news posting tool refers out to Active Directory, LDAP, SAML, SSO, whatever it is, and that's controlled by a completely separate group by design. So that's the incident. I know we went a little bit long there, but I appreciate you kind of taking the time to go through it. I'd like your feedback. What did you think about the exercise? Did you learn anything? Did you have any questions?
I thought it was
I
fun.
learned that I do not like my diet right now. That's what I've learned. No,
Very
but in all seriousness, it was nice to see what's what things we could do, the procedure could do to affect the different attacks, and the stuff that Sarah said, how even though we didn't necessarily had it as a procedure, thinking out of the box to figure out
Mhm.
ways where we can try to figure out where the attack happened and why it happened was very thought-provoking.
Yeah, good, excellent. And Black Hills has these online right now. They just did a bunch of them, the actual cards. I think they're like $10. So, you know, if you ended up liking the game and want to just play it, it's a fun game to just kind of play back and forth with people. They're also releasing a attack and defend where it's player on player, and one side is kind of red team and the other's blue team. They're working on that where you're playing against each other. And then they also have a competitive one where you're both defenders, but you're trying to solve first. So yeah, it's a good time. The last kind of thoughts I want to close with is just to say, you know, keep learning, keep showing up at Hack UCF, doing your thing. All those of you are new, I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't see, and I know that Hack UCF promotes it, B-Sides Orlando's coming up. It's going to be all virtual. It's going to be on November 6th and 7th. Workshops are getting posted, I think maybe just got posted or we posted in a couple days. Lots of really good low-cost workshops from incredible trainers. I don't know if it's public yet, but I'll mention it. Philip Wiley, Sonny Weir. Philip Wiley's running a penetration testing workshop. Sonny is running a burp suite workshop. We've got Joe Gray doing OSINT. We've got Aleth Dennis, who won the SECTF last year, doing a workshop on building pretext. We've got a bunch of cool stuff going on. So check it out at bsidesorlando.org. And any other questions for me? And thank you for having me. I enjoyed this, and this was a pile of fun. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one real quick. Is CitrusSec still meeting online?
And we tried it a couple times, and we had like one person show up, and then the first time we had a bunch of Zoom bombers because as smart as I am in security, I'm way too optimistic. Because I like the idea at like restaurants, like you can just show up, it's very low pressure. So I'm like, okay, we'll just put the Zoom link out there and we'll go. And I learned once again how terrible the internet is. But lesson learned. So we did one where you had to do registration and everything. I canceled last month. I will probably do next month. We'll do something virtual. The problem is the format. Like we did Backdoors and Breaches. We could do that again. You know, we could all play together. I don't know. If anyone has suggestions, my email is ian@ianmeyer.com. Email me suggestions. Say, hey, it would be cool if we did a virtual meetup where we did this. And if we can put it together, we will.
Cool.
Awesome. Excellent. Oh, hey, Daniel. How you doing? I just saw you in chat. Excellent. Well, again, thank you for your time. I don't know if you have anything to wrap up, but I'll kind of go on mute here, and I look forward to the next time we get to hang out and come out to UCF.
Thank you very much. It's always fun having you out.
Awesome.
Yep. Thank you, Ian, for that wonderful presentation. I hope everyone had fun. I hope we all enjoyed that. Let me just put this back up so we can all close out. All right, so that was Ian. We get a virtual round of applause for that. So that's basically all we got today. We've got a Discord hanging out if you want to keep in touch. We have a website. But other than that, I think unless we have any other questions for Ian, we can close this out. So thank everyone for coming. We had a good time, and we'll see you all next week.